All right, so let's talk about vermouth. Vermouth is a key component for a martini. Recently, I had a martini out that, in my opinion, was not a martini. It was literally just gin in a cocktail glass with a twist. Vermouth is what adds that je ne sais quoi to the martini. It adds depth, it adds flavor. When we get into our Manhattans, it's going to be the same thing. But it's basically what differentiates you having a martini from straight alcohol. Talked about it before. There's three main types of vermouth. We have the dry vermouth, the sweet vermouth, and the Bianco or Blanc vermouth. And I'm going to talk about all three of them now, how they vary, what's the flavor profile, but I kind of want to just give a little bit of a background on vermouth. So vermouth is a fortified wine. What that means is that it's wine that has added alcohol, distilled alcohol, it's usually brandy, that fortifies it. That's why it's a fortified wine. Typical fortified wines are Madeira wine, Marsala wine, port, sherry, but then you have a further subset of fortified wines, and those are the aromatized wines. And basically those are wines where they've added herbs, aromatics, bark, different items to basically enhance the flavor profile. The word vermouth actually comes from the German word Vermut, which is, actually I don't think that's the right word. I think I might have mispronounced that word. But either way, it's the German word for wormwood. And some recipes still have wormwood, but most don't actually. Like I said before, it's a fortified wine, so what that means is it can go bad. It's fortified, so it lasts a little bit longer, but like all wines, they oxidize, which is why you should always keep your vermouth in the fridge. If you open up a bottle of vermouth, you should try to finish it off within a few months, especially if you're not keeping it, a month if you're not keeping it in the fridge. Maybe 2 or 3 months in the refrigerator without it making any sort of difference. It's not harmful, but it is going to make a difference to the flavor profile. It's going to make it, the subtle nuances of those aromatics, of those added flavors, they're going to fade, and actually eventually the oxidation is going to make it so that it's not enjoyable. ABVs for vermouths, you're going to be looking at between 14.5% and 22%. Again, that's that added distilled alcohol that fortifies the wine. Like I said before, you want to keep it refrigerated. And I really do think that part of the problem why a lot of people don't like martinis is because their first experience with a martini is somewhere where they shouldn't. Somewhere where you get there and the vermouth bottle is sitting at the back of the bar, unrefrigerated and dusty because nobody's had a martini or anything vermouth related in some time. Think Josie's in Hell's Kitchen. It's currently closed. I'm not sure if they're going to be reopening. We'll see what happens in season 2, but it's not the kind of place where you go for a martini. It's not the kind of place, where you're going to have that fresh vermouth that's been kind of cycled through. Like I said, you're going to see it if they're going through the bottles fairly quickly. If it looks like a clean bottle, if they're moving past, you're seeing multiple martinis. That's the kind of place you want to have a martini because the vermouth's going to be fresh there. Dry vermouth has a tart, herbaceous flavor. It's going to have those notes of citrus. Sweet vermouth, it's richer. It's a red wine. It's going to have spices. It's going to have, you're going to have those notes of nutmeg, cinnamon, vanilla, caramel flavors. And then the Blanc or Bianco vermouth actually is a combination of both. You're going to have, it's going to be a little sweet, a little dry, and it's, like I said, somewhere in between the two. Now, I'm giving these basic flavor profiles, but I will tell you, every vermouth has its own proprietary recipe. It's one of these where, yes, there's going to be similarities from brand to brand, but at the same time, they're not the same. I'm using Desalins. I like the price point and I like the flavor profile. But I'll tell you right now, Martini and Rossi actually has a very solid, you know, for the price point, and it's the most accessible. Stanley Tucci, when he first started pushing martinis, said not to go with Martini and Rossi, to avoid the brand of vermouth that has Martini in the name. It's the most accessible. You're going to have a hard time going to a liquor store and not finding Martini and Rossi, as opposed to you go to your corner store and you might find, you know, you'll definitely find Martini and Rossi. You might find Cinzano's, maybe Gallo, but other than that, you're not going to find millions of Rossi. You know, you're not going to find an entire aisle unless you go to one of those specialty stores, unless you go to a place that has a good selection of fortified wines, or if you go to a place like Total Wine where you're going to have that wide, you know, 1 or 2 aisles of nothing but. And even then, it's in that section, you're going to find it usually in the liqueur section, and there's going to be maybe 1 head to toe section of vermouth if you're lucky. There's actually a vermouth bar in Miami, in the Coconut Grove neighborhood, called Victoria's. I've been meaning to go. It's part of the Kush restaurant group. I've been looking forward to going there for some time. It's more of a Spanish style tapas wine, Italian style aperitivo bar. Tapas bar, aperitivo bar, where you go and it's not necessarily going to be a martini bar. It's just going to be, you're going to be having different vermouth-based cocktails with various little appetizers. But it's definitely an enjoyable way to have it. You're going to be having a lot of sweet vermouth is essential in Negronis, Negroni offshoot cocktails, and Manhattans. Dry vermouth, like I said, it is the main component, or I should say the main supporting component in a martini. And then actually, you're not going to find a lot of Bianco or Blanc vermouth cocktails. Specialty cocktails will have them. I've actually noticed a lot of online bartenders, they're going to tell you that their recipe is vermouth, but they're not going to specify. And when you look at the bottle, you're going to see this bottle. You're going to see this coloration of wine. And I'm going to show you the colors shortly when I pour these glasses. But ultimately, you have kind of the golden color on the dry vermouth. You have obviously the red color with the sweet vermouth, and the Blanc is almost clear. If it's not almost clear, it means it's oxidized, and you probably, you can enjoy it for a brief while, but little by little, it's going to get worse, and eventually it's going to become unpalatable. So, all right, so let's pour these, and let's talk color, odor, or bouquet, I should say, flavor profiles. I'm just going to describe everything that's going on. And I'm not sure you can see the bottles themselves. The Bianco, or I should say the Blanc, this is a French vermouth, and the sweet vermouth actually are brand new bottles. Since I've been making a lot of martinis for the channel, I've kind of worked my way through half of this bottle. All right, so I'm not sure what you can see here. It's a golden color for the dry vermouth, as opposed to the Bianco or Blanc is completely clear. And then obviously you can see that the sweet is color of red wine. So it has, and I don't know how to describe it. I talked about it during the martini, my martini episode. If you haven't seen it yet, go back and check it out, my martini primer. Basically, there's a dryness to it. When you taste wine, when you taste it, it kind of hits you in the back here. I'm feeling that sensation just from the aroma. You got a little bit of citrus there. And it's spicy. This is actually spicier than I'm used to with a dry vermouth, but I feel it right there immediately. Moving on to the sweet. So this one, to me, actually, I'm not smelling anything. To me, this just smells like a regular glass of red wine. But when I taste it immediately, it's sweet. It's got that kind of molassesy, caramelly flavor. Almost feels like a glass of Manischewitz. Not quite as sweet, but it's got that flavor. And I'm actually catching at the very tail end subtle notes of cherry. Yeah. And now this is Dolan's. Like I said, it's right in between the two on the flavor profile. It's not quite so dry, not quite so sweet, and actually the subtle notes are on this one. The kind of I'm getting a little bit of berries in this one. Not quite cherries. Grapes maybe. And it's got the clean flavor that I like from a dry vermouth, but at the same time, it doesn't have that dry effect on my back, you know, the back of the jowls. Ultimately, you got all three of these, and it's one of these where, you know, it's hard, because when you think about it, it's one of these where you see a bottle of vermouth, and you can get a bottle of vermouth anywhere from $5 to $40. Now, you're going to be using, for a standard martini, you're going to be using anywhere from a half to 1 ounce per drink. So we're talking, you're going to get at least 30 to 60 martinis out of each bottle. If we're talking about just a standard martini. You're moving on to Negronis, you're moving on to Manhattans, that sweet vermouth, you're going to be getting more. And actually, you could use sweet vermouth in, it's technically now a Martinez, but same cocktail specs is going to be the sweet vermouth, and you can do that. And again, we're talking, you know, different flavor profile. It's going to be sweeter. It's got a little bit of a bitter finish. But again, we're talking about 30 to 60. You know, people look at this and they're like, okay, well, do I need it? It's a supporting role. It's not really that big. It's just 1/5 of, you know, we're talking 1 part of vermouth to 5 parts of vodka or gin. Is it really going to make that big of a difference? If it's good, it will. And it's one of these where, like I said, there's a wide range of vermouths. I say go out and try them. You know, it's hard to justify buying, you know, a $40 bottle for something that's just going to be half an ounce in a drink, or an ounce in a drink. But it makes a difference. And like I said, I go out and try them. I found that the Salins brand is one where it's a great price point, and I'm willing to pay for it. Dolan's is another one where you're going to get Dolan's anywhere from $15 to $25 a bottle. There's a few other brands of the Blanc, and for example, I actually prefer Dolan's Blanc over Martini Rossi's Bianco, just because I feel that it's smoother, it's more palatable, as opposed to the Martini Rossi that's a little bit harsher, it's a little bit drier. I haven't found, I don't know if they actually produce it or not, but Salins, I don't know if they produce a Blanc or Bianco. For example, Gallo has sweet and dry. I've never seen a Blanc or Bianco from them. So it all depends. And like I said, you may find, my corner liquor store does not have a great selection of alcohol, but they do carry the Martini and Rossi Bianco. So it's one of these where it's like you will find that everywhere. And something else about Martini and Rossi, they sell the 375 milliliter bottle, which if you're getting into martinis, if you want to try it out for the first time, it's not that painful. As opposed to getting yourself one of these, fancy bottles. And mind you, nothing that I've talked about today counts as one of those fancy bottles, but there are sweet vermouths out there that people love for cocktails, especially Manhattans, and they recommend it, or Negronis, and they'll go out and they'll use it with this one, and I'm trying to remember the name right now off the top of my head, but I can't remember. It comes in a beautiful bottle. I might tag it later on when I come back to edit this, just because I can't remember right now, and I don't want to get hung up on it. But it's one of these where, does it make a difference in the cocktail? Yes. When I'm at home, am I willing to pay $50 for that? Especially knowing that I may not go through the whole bottle. Lately I've been going through these pretty quickly just because I'm making so many cocktails for the channel. But at the same time, if I'm by myself, if I'm just drinking on a Tuesday night, I don't necessarily need such a fancy bottle because I'm afraid it's going to go bad. So these are all different things to consider. There are not a lot of little airplane bottles of vermouth, but there are some, so that might be another option for you guys to go out and try them without having to invest in a full bottle. Because again, it's sometimes not even about the price point. It's buying a whole bottle for something you may or may not like. Ultimately though, like I said, check out the bar, see where you are. If you're, like I said, if you're in a martini bar, if you're in a bar where they pull it out of the fridge, you see it stored in the fridge, you see it's an Italian restaurant, they do Negronis are on the menu. These are different items, different things to think about. Now, if you see, real quick, because I'm just having a thought, if you're reading through the menu and you see that their Negroni is listed as being made with Aperol instead of Campari, if you see that, like I said, definitely if you see that it's a divey bar, maybe don't get the martini, maybe stick with something a little simpler, just because it's not necessarily that they don't know how to make it, it's just that vermouth might be sitting there for a while. And it's just something where it makes a difference. It really does, especially if you don't drink a lot of them. If it's, your first time having it and you don't know what to expect, you're gonna have this, drink, and now your bar of martinis is gonna be set way low or way off for that matter, just because you've had a drink that is not made properly. Anyways, guys, I can keep talking in circles about this. These are the three standards. Tomorrow, I'm gonna make you my preferred martini. This is a drink that I love. It's my version of a martini. It's a little bit on the wetter side. It's not quite a reverse, or it's probably wet. It's a riff on a martini from a bar in Singapore, and it's actually made with the Bianco. So I'll show you guys tomorrow. And then I'm gonna make you another one after that, where I'm gonna show you guys a variation of how to order that at a bar where you don't necessarily need all the special ingredients, where you can get that anywhere. And to be honest, that's my favorite. That's the one where I drink that. I can have 2 or 3 of those, or I can have 4 or 5 of those, to be honest, but I feel satisfied, I feel quenched, and it's one of these where I don't necessarily, I don't feel bad ordering them, because I know, especially I'm giving them the specs of what I want, and it comes out exactly how I want it every time. So, guys, thank you again. See you next time, and yeah, cheers.